Hey, what did you talk about this week?
Welcome back to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger. This week, we've been talking about rejection. Our analogy this week had to do with indigestion. Makes me think of the song, the heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea. Hopefully, we don't get copyrighted for that. But the point of this week was to really hone in and focus on what we talked about in the very first podcast episode of rejection being normal. Got to normalize it. Once you build your confidence, you'll stop rejecting yourself as much because it happens every day. And as you build that confidence, you'll discipline yourself better and you'll be okay. I mean, you don't want to be in this state of not giving approval and acceptance to things. Now that we're at the table, we can get into some really good examples. All of the examples I'm going to give today are going to be things that you're going to be able to relate to. If you are early in your career, you will be able to relate to these things because it happens to everyone in corporate America. First story I want to go over, and we all experience this. We grow up, we're told that we need to go to college, and now it's time for that first job. For me specifically, I went to a pretty good school and went for a degree that had a lot of interest. I mean, there was legit the thought process that it should be pretty easy to find a job. What I found as I actually went into the job market, which of course you have to see what's going on in the economy, if it's a good job market, if it's a bad job market. At the time it was neutral. Like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't a booming job market. I went looking for my first opportunity in corporate America. What I found is number one, the actual process to do so. For some companies, the interviews were behavioral based questions. Some companies had technical questions. Some companies had panel interviews. Others was very casual, like a lunch conversation. There were so many different styles of interviewing that for my lack of experience in them, I was in that thought process. It's like, I will never find a job. I am not going to be able to get acceptance into any of these companies because I don't know what I'm doing out here. I'm just trying my best. I know spent so much time in a resume workshop trying to make this piece of paper look the best that it can be. However, that's not what interviewing and finding a job truly is. As we get into this year of 2025, there's a lot of artificial intelligence and other like-minded systems to help build a resume to bypass and get through that first wave of review that a recruiter does. But the actual interview with the hiring manager, that process is so variable, never truly got any type of coaching or teaching on that process and how to navigate it. It was a trial by fire. I had to learn. I remember specifically on a handful of companies, one was a one-on-one interview with the company that I already interned with. I was actively an intern in that company. And it was the most casual conversation about what my interest level was. I felt good and I felt like, okay, if you know the hiring manager, all interviews are going to be like this. Then I went to a different interview where I was given at least 6 or 7 super technical questions. I even had to bring my final project that I did for school in with me as objective evidence to support some of the answers that I gave to the technical questions and provided demonstrations of how I came to the conclusion for some of my answers. Something that I wasn't expecting, that I wasn't properly prepared for, but now that I went through that experience, I know moving forward what to do if I was ever in that scenario again. But we're talking about being in that scenario. We're talking that being like my second interview ever trying to get a job. Was not prepared for this interview. didn't get the job for the first interview. I was offered a position after the fact, like well after I already accepted my actual job offer. So let's say for now, first interview didn't get the offer yet. Second one didn't get an offer. And I went on like a good 4 or 5 other interviews where I just did not get the job. What really sucks too, and those of you new to corporate America or looking for your first job in corporate America, please note this: there is no requirement for them to call you back. There's no requirement for them to have any sort of verbal disposition with you. It can be just as simple as letting the system notify you with that automatic notification that you weren't selected. Then you're left wondering what happened. I need feedback. And that's when the rejection kicks in, because it's like, I want to know the rationale. I want to know the reason. I feel like I'm on the realm of taking this personally because I don't know any better. When I went through those additional interviews and didn't get the job, it hurt because number one, I was finished with college. It was time to make some money, wanted to make some money. Also, the bigger thing is we all go to college so that we can get a good paying job. So it's like, hey, I did all this work. I want to see the fruits of my labor. That all changed after I started the next round of interviews with different companies and the offers start kicking in. What's very interesting is when I got my first offer, the rejection, the feeling of rejection, the state of feeling of being rejected, all flew away. I got that first acceptance and it came externally, and I internalized it so much that it helped break the barriers that existed due to me feeling like it was personal with the previous declines. That was the wrong thing to do, but I just didn't know any better at the time. For me, I thought I was like, oh, I finally got my offer. I can finally break down the barriers. When in reality, it was the fact that I persevered from all the previous interviews and continued to look for a job that really highlighted my discipline and ability to keep pushing forward. I thought I was in a state of rejection. I thought that everything that was forthcoming was not going to be for me and that I was not going to get acceptance into any company. So I was just in this mind like, I'm not going to be accepted. It's okay, but I'll, do it anyway because I'm looking for money. Yeah, that wasn't really fully true, because if I was in a true 100% mind of rejection, I wouldn't put the effort into it. So something in me told me that, hey, you're not in this 100% mind of rejection. It's partially. You're partially feeling that way. You're in the realm of taking it personally, but you course correct. You get the interview, and that external influence of finally getting that offer was a nice catalyst for me to break down my own barriers and be like, hey, the world's not ending. Those of you already in corporate America, you see this when you're looking for the next role. When you're looking for that next role and you're just applying to internal positions and you're having interviews and you're not getting anything, you feel really dejected, and it's a terrible feeling. The company will communicate how important it is to switch roles, how to gain experience in other areas, how to build off your own experience and gain more skill sets. When you try to do that, nothing comes of it. Or it takes a while to find the next role sometimes. That's a horrible feeling. A lot of it just has to do with us being in the realm of nearly taking it personal. For me, the longest I went searching for a new role was 18 months. From the time that I seriously started to when I actually found the role. I applied internally. I took the process of applying internally first, using my network to help influence a little bit where I should narrow my search to internally. Once I didn't get those opportunities, the spectrum started to widen of what I was going to seek. And it widened again when I didn't get any opportunity to, okay, not only internally, but now we're going to look externally too. Once that didn't produce any results, I had to take a tactical pause. Before I took it personally and got to that threshold where it's like, I'm going to be in this mode of rejection, took that tactical pause before I got there, reevaluate it, and readjust, redeploy, tried to build my confidence up. The action I specifically took in order to remedy the situation and move on to the next role is that I re-engaged some of my higher executive network, communicated what my preference was at the time, where I sought to go, and pretty much pleaded for them to help make it happen. And that ended up happening. They made it happen. One person connected me to another person. That person notified her team that there's a talent available that you all should pick up, and I got picked up. It was an awesome feeling, very validating that I always had the means to get it done. I just didn't apply it correctly. When we talk about rejection, and specifically for myself in that moment, it's very hard to recognize that we do have the power. We're down on ourselves and we think that we can't do it. So the default feeling is to just go to rejection. That's why the first action I want you to have is to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself and know that things are possible. If you are reaching that mode of rejection, it's usually because you stop believing in yourself. It's not about what others can do for you. It's what you can do for yourself. It's how you can influence others to do for you. But before you can get to influencing others, you have to put yourself in a state where you're ready to go influence others. You got to be strategic and do that evaluation to know that you have the power, the confidence, and the skill set to influence in order to meet your needs. You got to believe in yourself. You can do it. You are very capable of anything that you want in this world. Gotta believe in yourself. And it gets hard. It gets hard. The killer for especially this example that I'm giving of the job application is the repetition. Again, what do we talk about in the kitchen? It happens every day, meaning it happens on a frequent basis. It was occasional, wouldn't hurt as much, but when it's frequent, like when you're looking for a job, you're not putting in 1, 2 applications. You're putting in 5, 10. I hope you don't get to 20. I hope you don't get there, but 5 to 10. And to have that back to back to back to back to back decline of your candidacy, that feels like rejection there. And it gets you in close to that mode where it's like, I'm going to hit the life sucks button, but it really doesn't. It wasn't right for you or whatever scenario. It just wasn't meant for you. And you have to believe in yourself and keep pushing. Keep pushing. That's going to walk us right into our next story that I told before in an earlier podcast episode about a time that I was working in a company and I was just having a really, really hard time. At that time, I was definitely in a mode of rejection. Like, I rejected every notion of anything positive coming out of this organization. I was not aligned with where leadership wanted to push the organization towards. I wasn't aligned with the decisions my leadership made. I wasn't aligned with the strategy. I wasn't aligned with the direction that the company was going into. I felt validated in my sorrows when I spoke to other people about the same exact thing, and they've told me, yes, no, this is true. This is what we're doing, and we're not happy about it either. I felt at that time I wasn't alone in my disappointment for all of the variables I mentioned earlier. However, I was the only one that walked around in this very negative state, in this very full-blown rejection mindset. I did not take anything positive. We had a specific, and I mentioned this on the goals episode, we had a specific scenario in which we were attempting to reach a goal, and I feel like we didn't get the support that was necessary in order for us to achieve it. Came in at about on a scale of 0 to 10, I came in at like a 20. And my boss at the time told me, no, they're going to give us full credit for reaching the goal, despite the fact that we didn't get the support that we needed in order to finish it from a statistical standpoint and get the documented systematic proof based off of all the information that was presented, leadership will give the thumbs up and say, no, you all hit your goal. For me, I'm like, nah, don't think so. If the system is not going to tell us we hit it, we didn't hit it. I don't care what words are said. Everyone here has a short-term memory. They forget what they said in the meeting 15 minutes ago. So there's no way you're going to sit here and tell me that based off of what we talk about at 8 o'clock in the morning and what the leadership talks about at 8:30, they're going to remember at the 3 o'clock meeting this afternoon what we talked about at 8:30 in the morning. I'm just not buying it. Can't turn out to be right, but that's beside the point. The point is that it was not necessary to be in that state of rejecting the notion of not hitting the goal. Because I was in that mode of rejection, I didn't accept the fact that there was an opportunity to view the situation as an accomplishment and achieving something, and accepting that we did actually hit an achievement that is getting recognized. But I wasn't there. I wasn't happy with anything that was going on. I rejected every notion of positivity. You will notice that. And again, that comes with repetition. When it happens consistently, I know we talked about every day in the kitchen. Let's call it every week. If it's happening on a weekly basis and you let that pile on, that will accelerate you to this mode of rejection, to this mode that everything's unacceptable. When I say at this company, we repeated the same poor behavior constantly. We made the same poor decisions constantly. And after so many times, we would recycle it. It's just be like, hey, let's do a decision 1 this week, decision 2 this next week, decision 3 the week after, decision 4 the week after that. All right, all of those fail. What should we do? Let's bring back decision 1. And I'm like, this is no bueno. Like, we are not doing well. And instead of being a champion to accept where we stood and try to bring the change, be the change that was necessary, I just lived in the sorrow as everyone else. Like, no, this sucks. We're stupid. Company's stupid. And, well, we're destined to fail. That is not a good state to be in. That also provides negative energy, negative influences to others. I consider myself someone that definitely feeds off of energy and gives a lot of energy to others to feed off of. When you're negative, it is so much easier to feed off negativity than positivity. When someone's overly positive, not everyone will embrace that. Not everyone. People will be like, you're a little too happy. Bring that down a little bit. But when someone's negative, and you can see it, you tend to like be a little less critical of people that are overly negative. And I know some people are listening like, no. If someone's like super overly negative, I dismiss that notion too. Yes, but do you stop them from doing that? Do you stop them from doing that? When a person is overly positive, are you positive with that person? Do you validate them and also keep the positivity high? In most cases, do we really do that? Or do we say that person has enough positivity for all of us and you let them ride that train, right? On the negative end, if someone's negative and they're dissing people at the company, do we tend to correct them and say, no, it's actually a positive, or join them in the dissing? I know for me, when I was in this company at that state, I was joining in the dissing. I was like, yeah, no, that sucks. That sucks. I agree. Here's a specific example. Oh, you got an example too? Let's trade examples. And it was just a full mode of just diss mode. Meanwhile, the only happy camper in the group had so much energy, but not necessarily enough to offset my negative energy. My negative energy was just going through the entire organization, and not great. Not great. That's why the second action is to find an outlet. At this time, for me specifically, I did struggle to find an outlet. I couldn't, because of my post-work schedule, go to the gym. I did try video games for a bit, and that was helping for a little while. I tried eating better because I wasn't eating the greatest at the time. It was very difficult to find an outlet. I tried reading, I tried golf, anything to get that outlet out. It wasn't until later in my career that I truly identified what my outlet is. Once you do find it, hang on to it. I know a lot of people choose working out where you're going through a tough day and you just let out all that energy at the gym. For me, working out isn't it because I tend to work out before work so that I'm so tired when I get to work. People yell at me and I'm just like, yeah, I'm tired. I kind of use it that way where it's like, oh, this executive's yelling at everybody. It's like, it's fine. He can yell at me. I'm too tired to even fight that. But for me, my outlet tends to be spending time with my family. When I close the laptop, shut down the computer, put the phone down, screen down, not screen up, screen down. I put the phone down and I spend time with my family. Family is the reason I do everything that I do. And they are they're my North Star. They're my key to everything. And I try to spend the maximum amount of time with them as possible. I, I absolutely love and adore them, and they make me happy. That happiness is all I need, is literally all I need. There's plenty of other stuff that I can do that I absolutely love, traveling, driving cars, playing sports, video games, blah, 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 blah. There's a plethora of things that I enjoy doing, but none of them tops the moments that I get, the happiness that I receive, the happiness I give with just spending time with them. That's my outlet, being able to make money and spend it on my family to create the moments that we do. And it could be as big as going to Disney World, as small as to eating ice cream. Whatever it is, as long as I'm with them, that's my outlet. When I was at this company and I wasn't happy, again, I was looking for a lot of different outlets, just didn't find one. What ultimately ended up happening is that I left the company, and obviously, based off of everything I described, I needed to. That was huge for me, leaving the company. And I would say it wasn't a full blown instantaneous feeling of escaping the mode of rejection. I was still partially there when I got to the new company. I started seeing some of the same patterns, and I took a tactical pause to realize, hey, it's not me, it's them. And that takes us to our third action in our next story. Third action is give yourself words of affirmation. Give yourself words of affirmation. One of the reasons I was able to take that tactical pause and truly make the statement where, hey, it's not me, it's them, is this thing that everyone does. Everyone does this in their career. You're going to do it in your career. It's a terrible habit. I tell people that I mentor, we got to stop doing this. The comparison. What does that mean? That means that you look around and you want to compare someone else's career to yours. What does that look like for me? Well, when I started my career, there were other people that started the same day as me. Probably, I want to say like 11 to 13 others outside of me started same day. We all took our badge pictures at the same time. Our clock numbers, our employee ID numbers were sequential. So if we go back and look at the system, all 14 of us have employee ID numbers within 14 numbers because we all got them assigned at the same time. That was a while ago, long time ago. Fast forward to now, and you see where those other 11 to 13 people are. You can make an assessment of who was successful, who was not as successful. But how do you make that assessment? What's the baseline? This is the comparison that we do that is horrible. So as we got into the days, we all took the badge day one, or the badge photo day one. We got our, employee ID numbers, laptops dispersed into the different groups that we worked in. But because you heard each other's name, you got to at least recognize and identify who's who and where people are already. So coming in, we all weren't on equal ground. It wasn't like we all came in at the same level. However, that comparison makes you inertly determine that that's the baseline. Yeah, I could have started on the bottom level and you were mid level, but that's my baseline. I know I need to catch up to you, and eventually the desire is to surpass you because I want to move up. That person's thinking the same thing. I just want to continue moving up, and I cannot let this person get to where I am before I get further ahead to keep this gap that we currently have. A couple years went by, and some people got promoted. I didn't get promoted. That was the first sign where it's like, I'm not doing good. I'm not doing enough. Be careful with that. Give yourself words of affirmation. Make sure you tell yourself you're doing a good job, because you don't want to compare your life and your career to others. For me in this situation, I was very early in the career, just starting out, compared where I was to others, and I felt like I had to make a change just based off of what I saw. I'm going through my career, a couple years in, everyone's getting promoted. I'm like, oh, maybe I need to get promoted. So I sought a new job and left the team that I was on just because I didn't want to fall too far behind and I wanted to get promoted. Ended up happening, got promoted, went to the next job. Fast forward about 5 years from thereafter, you do another assessment and you see it's like usually every 5 years, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, and then stop caring. And probably after 20, you really stop caring, because at that point you choose whether you're going to go the executive path or not. At that 5-7 year mark, did the assessment again, looking around where everyone was. I felt like I was behind and I was lagging. So I didn't accept where I was. I was rejecting the notion that, hey, you are not moving fast enough. If you don't move faster, you're going to continue to fall behind your competition. That brings down the confidence, and that doesn't induce the discipline that was necessary to maintain the highest performance and use performance-based merit to continue moving up. And when I say performance-based merit, it's like, hey, when the time comes, they'll bring you up instead of saying, hey, I gave exceptional performance this year, let's move me up this next year, sort of thing. Didn't wait around. So I made a plan and kind of accelerated my path a little bit and felt that I was in a position where I caught up. And then there was a moment in time where I was at the 10-year mark that I felt a little bit ahead. It's like, okay, I have great experience. If I size myself up with the peers at that time, I felt like I was in a good position. That is a terrible way to think and a terrible mode to be in. It's so hard not to be there. And the worst part is, I was doing it from an experience level. Most people will do it, and you will do it from a salary level where you hear numbers. This generation is coming into the workforce much more open about salary data. And it seems like every new generation that they bring into the workforce starts off at a higher salary than the previous generation. So when I started, the generation before me was saying, oh, you're starting way higher than we did. And I'm saying that about the generations after me. Like, oh, you all have a higher head start than what we did coming in. So for them to close that gap was a lot faster process than me when I was trying to get to where I was. That definitely gives a feeling of like, wow, I reject the notion of who you are. You don't have the experience to gain the amount of money that I'm gaining. Like, you didn't go through what I had to go through, instead of accepting them for their experience level and accepting the state that the world is. That's going to continuously happen. The generations after, they're just going to start off a little bit higher with the better head start than the generation before. That's the reality of the situation. That comparison is so evil. And I remember that once I got over the whole experience thing around my 10th year, it was like, it kind of is what it is. Got that acceptance of, I just need to figure out my career. Everything else will Everyone else will figure their stuff out, and I just have to talk to my ships, my mentors, my sponsors, my coaches to understand where my career stacks up for my career, not versus anyone else's. And that's what I have done since that year 10 of just making sure that all the people that I talk to evaluate my career for my career. Now, they may be doing comparisons in their heads, but we don't do it out loud. They don't say, "Oh, well, you're behind person A, so I would think you want to move up a little bit faster." And they'll say, "Okay, no, at the next, 5-year milestone, this is where you may want to be at. And let's push you a little bit faster to get there. And let's come up with a plan to get you more experience so that you can get there when you reach the milestone." That is a much better plan and brings a lot more confidence than taking the path of comparison, and that's just going to put you in a mode of rejection. Again, add the financial, monetary aspect into it as well, and you are going to be very upset. You might fall into a mode of rejection that you can't get out of when you start talking financial compensation, because let me tell you, it is not an equal ground. Some people get paid more than others, and when you go digging into the possible reasons why, you will enter a world that you aren't prepared for and will be very hard to accept because it's not equal, it's not free, it's not right, it's not fair. We don't play in a fair system. So until you realize that and accept that, you will put yourself in an abyss chasing the rationale to the difference in monetary compensation. And what happens in that scenario? You take it personally, and it might put permanent damage. Because don't get me wrong, you come in and you're making $100,000 after working for the company in 20 years, and some person with 5 years of experience is making 150. Yeah, I would understand why you would want to take something like that personally, but it's not personal, it's business. And it's not a fair business. It's business. And until you accept that and until you recognize it, stop doing the comparison, you're never going to get out of that mode of rejection. That's why you got to give yourself words of affirmation and just focus on you. Let yourself know you're doing a good job. Also, I think one thing that people really forget when it comes to these salaries, when they're doing salary comparison, cost of living matters. People that are making $500,000 in California, that $500,000 is a very different amount of money in a Texas or an Alabama, a Mississippi, a New Jersey, a Florida, Washington, the state, Washington, D.C. Like a $500,000 goes very differently in all those areas. So when I hear people that are in Northern California and they're making 250, that doesn't bother me. Like that means absolutely nothing to me because I could be making, let's say, a quarter of that, but living in Mississippi, and the money in Mississippi can go further. Obviously, that's not what's happening to me right now, but not really caring about the comparison and acknowledging the fact that things are different just because of regionalism, sectionalism, and pretty much where you are in the world affecting your cost of living makes it different. We see this all the time with the comparison of the United States versus Europe. When you accept that things are different, you don't even have to do the comparison. You accept that it's different. It's not an apples and apples. It's you have an apple, I have an orange. Okay, we're different. Accept it. Oh, let's go through all the line items to compare and contrast. No. It's an apple and it's orange. It's not the same. So we're good. Like just leave it at there. It's like, oh no, but this is a red. This apple's red and it has a stem and a leaf, and yours is orange. No. If you're doing that, you're doing comparison. You don't need to. You have an apple, I have an orange. It's different. I accept that. And I'm going to accept the fact that I have an orange. I have to peel my orange. I'll open it up and make the individual slices and eat it that way. And I'm going to be happy and content. Don't care what you do on the apple. I know what I'm going to do with the orange to make myself content. That is the mindset that I put myself in, that I recommend for you as well, to ensure that you take care of you. If you want to be thriving, put yourself first, give yourself words of affirmation and be happy with yourself and your decisions. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. So I'm going to end on this last quick story, going on this theme of the comparison, right? I have a friend that constantly compares themselves to other people and say, hey, I started with this group of people. They are way ahead of me in life. They make more money than me. I'm behind. I'm not doing well. One of the things that we found out from talking was that the feeling of not accepting their current position was really inert from the family. So when we were in the kitchen, we talked about how it is possible where a lot of problems are like inherent. If we talk about health issues, what's the first thing your doctor always asks? Do you have any family history of these issues? And it's because they're just trying to get to the bottom of it. They're trying to solve the problem. It's not personal. It is a way to devise that, hey, some of the stuff that you're feeling are just inherited. It's just the way that it is. You didn't cause it. You just have it. That was the same thing that was happening to my friend where, a lot of the way that they were feeling wasn't necessarily caused by them, or at least initially, it wasn't started from them wanting to compare. The thought and process of comparison was given to them and instilled in them at a very young age. That's hard. That is difficult. And that is a tough situation to be in when you have to deal with that inherited, that passed on system that doesn't get course corrected, because then it's like you start off bad. And unless you have the confidence or the self-awareness to correct that, you fall deeper and deeper into the abyss. And this friend has a full-blown mode of rejection because that's where they started. Didn't realize that at the time, so they just continued the path and thought that was normal. It's like, no, that's not normal. You got to break this code. You got to break this mindset of just being rejected in this state of rejection. Build your confidence up, have the discipline. And because of that inherited process, what did we say? It becomes a habit, and habits are very hard to break. I'm talking, when we were in the kitchen, I was talking about, at work, working for 25 years, and you have that habit from working 25 years. Imagine that's how you grew up. And let's call it, obviously, when you're an adolescent or pre-adolescent years, you're not really cognitive to that type of conditioning as deeply as later. So let's call it 12 years. 12 years plus 25 years. That is a long time of building a certain habit. That makes it very hard to break. So if you're already conditioned to a set, like my friend was, it's that much harder to break. They're slowly building out of it, but a lot of it is just breaking how you were raised. That's why it's very important to have a strong family household, and those parents that are listening to it, that's why it's very critical to give yourself words of affirmation as well as your children, because they need it. And how you condition them and how you set them up will determine some of their success. Not only do we want ourselves to thrive, but we want our kinship to thrive as well. They are a part of us. Let's set them up with the best future as possible. And speaking of setting kids up for their future, it reminds me of when
Hey, you said last story. Can you wrap this up?
Oof. Okay. I enjoyed working on this menu item with you this week, but let's come to an end while it's still hot. Remember, the ending to one story is the beginning of another. There will be more in store next week at the Corporate Kitchen. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.